Good morning, and great to see your smiling faces here for our panel discussion. We just finished one up a few minutes ago and starting over here. Brian was our moderator in the first panel.
Yeah, we just swapped places.
That's right, yeah, at the lectern. It's kind of an inside joke. But yeah, so this panel is titled How to Recruit, Train, and Build a Strong HVACR Team Today. We really, and we emphasize the word team. It's not about just how to build your workforce and that sort of thing. So it's really focused on the contracting side of things. All the folks up here are contractors. I'll have you guys introduce yourselves in a minute and tell us a little bit about yourselves. So why don't we start with that, and then we'll open things up. Brian?
Yeah, I'm Brian Orr. I'm around here. I'm mostly known for being a HVAC nerd who talks on the internet, and I think mostly gives accurate advice, hopefully. But I'm also a contractor, so we're a local business here, west side of town. We have about 330 employees. We've grown a lot over the last 5 years, and we started with 3 of us in 2005. So I'm a co-founder. I'm now the president and primary shareholder of the business. And yeah, we do a lot of different things: residential, air conditioning, all the way up to market refrigeration. We're also a GC, electrician, plumber, a lot of different things. So that's me.
Thanks, Brian.
Really? I got to follow that?
You got it.
All right. I'm Chuck Worley. I'm out of Yorktown, Virginia, kind of between Virginia Beach and Williamsburg. So I own heating and air conditioning, electrical, plumbing. We do crawl space encapsulation, spray foam insulation. I'm kind of a building science nerd. I've got about 85 employees now. I've got a very interesting story of highs and lows in business, but we're definitely on the high. We're on budget this year to do about $17 million. We started back in 2016 is when I started over the second company. So divorce sucks. I don't recommend it. So starting over. So half the room's like, yo. So must be something about contracting. Tough life. But anyway, that's me. And I am the founder and host of the 757 House Whisperer. I've got a radio show that helps the homeowners of my area kind of creating a place where I am the Ask the Expert of my area. I call myself Chuck the Brand Worley. So we are very much about being in people's faces as much as possible. You will notice the Chuck E. T's, Chuck Taylors. You will notice me, right? So that's my job as a business owner, to make people remember me and not my competitors. So I am a walking brand. My trucks are green and orange, so that may make that more clear now.
Nice.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Cool. My name is Chad Simpson from a small town in Ohio, New Philadelphia, Ohio. Simpson Salute is our primary brand. We do have a couple other companies that we've acquired along the way. We're about 100 people now. Grew this from one person, myself, in a 2-stall garage with a van, just out of high school graduation, and knew this was the plan, and kind of planned through high school to do this. I had no idea that it would become what it is. It was just like a 5 people vision kind of thing to supply for what I knew would be a family at one point. So it's gotten to be something bigger than me at this point, and we've come up with some pretty nice processes and procedures and some great management that kind of holds it all together for me.
Thank you. Tom?
I'm Tom Hearn with Hearn Plumbing, Heating, and Air. I'm the 3rd generation owner and general manager of I'll represent the small segment of business up here. We run about 7 to 8 trucks full time. We have about 20 people on staff. 3 to 4 to 5 of those will be apprentices at any given time. We'll do about $3.4 million with those 7 to 8 trucks. And we have always put an emphasis on recruiting from outside the industry and growing our technicians green.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, well, we'll jump right in.
Aren't you going to introduce yourself?
I'm Dominic Guarino, CEO and President of National Comfort Institute. We're a national training organization. We train about 2,500 to 3,000 people a year nationwide in advanced technologies like air balancing, diagnostics, combustion, and so on and so forth. So it's been great to be in the industry. About 30 plus years as NCI, as National Comfort Institute, and very excited about the future. So we'll talk a little bit about that future. So part of the future is how do we get great people on our teams, right, as contractors. How many here are contractors or technicians? So most of you. So all the engineers have left the building. All right.
Yeah.
We can talk about them now.
Yeah.
But, you know, so a few years ago, I think it was about 2023, I was reading some information from the Department of Labor about the trades in general and the deficit, if you will, of technicians, and they focused on HVAC. And at the time, they said that within 5 years, 1 in 2 technicians wouldn't be here anymore because of retiring and so on and so forth, or leaving the industry for other things. So that was a little bit of an alarm bell, and I know we've all heard that alarm bell for years at these conferences. You hear about, you know, the labor pool shrinking. So what we're going to talk about is, how do we attract people, right? And I'm not just talking, you know, stealing a tech from another company type of attracting people, but bringing people to our industry, and also we're going to talk some more about how do you keep them engaged and on top of all the changes that are constant, and that of course has a lot to do with training and education and all of the tools that you guys use to keep your people engaged, retain them, and advance their careers. I think that's a big part of it. So I guess we'll start with Chad. If you could describe, you know, what your company does to attract people, and bring them on board.
Yeah. So we grew the company. We ended 2020 at about 3.5 million, maybe 3.8, but let's call it 3.5. And we finished last year at 21.5 million, and we're budgeted for 29 million, and we hit our January budget. So that means we probably will hit 29. So that's quite a bit of growth in a time of labor shortage, supposedly. So we have a lot of younger technicians, so we will hire anybody out of a trade school that wants to work for us. It doesn't always work, but we a lot of times find fits. Like, we've got a guy on our IT side that thought he wanted to be a service tech that turned out like he's really good at some other stuff, you know. So many times we don't work these people out, we just work them into kind of other positions. But we've had a lot of success recruiting, not just from trade schools, but recruiting young men and women into our industry. And I specifically will talk about service and install because that's what I really enjoy. But even office staff and sales staff and everything else. But from the Xerox company, like a copy repair company, we've had great success bringing technicians from that industry into ours. And that's becoming an industry where, like, it's definitely a corporate world. They really have, let's say, like, really, you know, tight guidelines to work by, right, or a process that they work by. So to come to us,
It's not a family.
it's, well, yeah. So there's negatives and positives, and so they kind of like want to get out of some of the Fortune 500 world, and they want to come work for maybe somebody with a little bit better culture. Because as those companies get sold, the culture kind of gets crushed. So we recruit from Xerox, from Spectrum, so like cable companies, right? Like the guy or gal that will come in and you know, get your TV working again, that also can say like, hey, check out this sound bar while I'm here, right? Like they can communicate. At the same time, they were taught a process by a larger company than we can be, right? So sometimes it's easier to recruit those people in and teach them the trade. A lot of that is with the technology that we have available with, say, Measure Quick or the TrueFlow Grid. We use that as kind of a tool that keeps it attractive, right? It's hard to bring a person from outside of our industry into our industry and hand them a set of manifold gauges and be like, this is really cool, because it's really not that cool. But when you can start having the technology to keep them engaged with the company, it kind of is a tool that we use.
Excellent. Tom, would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and so the topic was attracting to the industry.
Yeah.
So I think one, just always making sure that you're always open. Your doors are always open to attract new people. Keeping your jobs, your postings open, whether or not you need a technician or not in that role. Being willing to sit in front of any individual. Making sure you have a recruiter that's going out to these individuals in these different industries and are looking at open resumes in all the industries that Chad just described. There's so many similarities between the mechanics and the welders and the spectrums and all the different types of technicians out there that it's very relevant to bring them into the industry, and you can help them up to your standard in a very short amount of time with the right type of training and onboarding. So one, just making sure you're defining your character. Look for your character traits that align with your company, with your core values and who you are, and the standards that you're wanting to hold within your community and in the industry itself.
Awesome. Well, I'll flip it over now to Brian and Chuck. Maybe share a little bit about your process to train people and retain them and career paths, that sort of thing.
Before we jump into that, I do want to just say one other thing about that attracting. I am at all the high schools, all of I went through shop class when I went through high school. High school was not my place. I barely made it through high school. By the grace of God, I made it through high school. But going to all these events, anytime they have workshops or whatever, I walk into those buildings. I do get noticed by kids because of the crazy outfits I wear. So it brings attention to us. So again, our job as contractors is to make people think about us. When these guys a couple years from now are graduating, they'll remember the guy in the crazy orange jacket. He looks fun. Maybe I'll work there. So especially guys that like me, the fact that I got through high school was a blessing, right? So I was afraid of my mother, so I had to graduate. So some of y'all will get that. But so being in front of these kids is a big deal, and talking about the trades. We got to become the trade evangelists. The trades changed my life. I don't know if they changed yours, but it sure changed mine, in a positive way, not a negative way. We're telling these guys it's just not the image of a plumber is a butt crack hanging out, one tooth. It's now we're saying, hey, these guys can make. I got technicians that make $100,000 a year. The guys, all of a sudden, what? These kids are like, I can make money in the trades, and so we have to train these kids that, hey, look, it's not just I know everybody's seen that guy with the plumbing truck with the toilets on the side. I don't want that image of that. I want them to think, hey, this is a career path. I can make money doing this. So, but anyway, the high schools I think are as important.
Great.
All right, so the question is about training and process and, growing people. There's a tension between creative chaos and process, and a lot of people like to focus on the process piece, especially business people. That's what they want to hear about. What's the system? How can I systematize this? But fundamentally, people don't want to be a system. People like systems to help them get things done that are boring, but the parts of your job that you enjoy are the creative chaos part. If you ask experienced technicians in our trade, I encourage you to do this sometime, ask them, what do you like about your job? What they will say, if you give them enough time, is something different every day. I've heard that tens of thousands of times from people when you ask them. What's that all about? Because that ain't a process, right? It's the reason why your best senior technicians really hate doing maintenance, right? And so you have to kind of re-inspire them with something new to work on, or something new, a new tool or something to kind of keep them engaged in it. And sometimes we're just fighting against the wrong thing. We're trying to apply business ideals to the reality of what somebody feels empowered by, what somebody feels excited about. And you have to have both. You do have to have both. Who here knows Ty Brannaman or has ever seen Ty Brannaman before? If you don't, I would encourage you to look him up. He's the most creative, chaos-sided trainer in the entire industry, former technician, former everything. And if you listen to Ty, you can't walk away without a smile on your face, excited to be a tradesperson. He's also one of the least organized human beings you've ever met in your life. I'm very close, but he's a little further than me. I've gotten to work with him a lot, so I know, and that's not a bad thing. We talk a lot about pointy people at Kalos. We employ a lot of pointy people. Strong points and weak points, right? And we don't make their weak points a problem. We focus on their strong points. I use the example of Emily, who helps me do basically everything I do. The points that were written on the last panel for the leadership panel, those were all written by her. All the research, everything that went into it, my prep for my podcast, articles that I write, my PowerPoint presentations, everything. I have met Emily in person twice, and she lives in our town. She's a very introverted person. She enjoys being home and working and having her dog by her side. She's a very pointy person. If I tried to force her into the office every day, she would not work for me if I made a corporate policy about it. So those are just a couple examples. What does that look like for us? That looks like we have career pathing. We have very clear established paths, the different levels of technicians at every point in our business, whether you're a grocery refrigeration tech or whether you're a residential technician or installer. But we recognize within those structures, there's a lot of wiggle room for humanity. There's a lot of wiggle room for the individual. If you were to go to one of our residential service meetings that I do a lot of the classes for still, it's one of my favorite parts of my week to get to do classes with our residential team. They are a bunch of lovely weirdos. Just great human beings who care about our clients, who care about their families, who care about our community, but they are just all kind of different people in that room. And that has allowed us to have a much broader pool to draw from when you talk about the recruiting side. So what is education fundamentally? Education fundamentally is really learning something that you can apply. That's how you develop people. What I would give you as advice in terms of like something that we've applied that's been just sort of by accident is that our entire leadership team are teachers. Everybody on leadership loves to teach. And what does that do for your team? Well, does that attract them initially? In some cases it does, because then when you go to the high school, you're actually able to show them, how a vacuum can boil water or some electrical something. You get to show them a cool tool or whatever, and so that's fun. If you are not a technical business owner, I would still encourage you, find a way, find your thing to teach, whatever it is, that you can consistently deliver to your people, because that's going to engage them with you personally. As an example, how many of you follow corporate LinkedIn accounts that you really enjoy for like a big brand? No, they stink. But you follow, Elon Musk on Twitter and X, and it's pretty darn interesting, right? It's the same thing when you think about your internal customer, the people who you care about in your business. Be interesting, be engaging, teach them. And that's really what we've seen is far more powerful than the structures we put in place. Sure, we've got all that. We've got the books, we've got the LMS, we work with SkillCat. Obviously, I put a lot of stuff for free on the internet to everybody that we use within my own organization. But that creative chaos part, especially for technical workers, I think is even more important.
Thank you. So let's shift the conversation a little bit. That's kind of tied to what Brian just mentioned. Important part of a company is its culture. Culture can make or break what that company's about. And it seems that, obviously a values-based culture tends to be better than a, forceful, thou shalt, type of culture that exists in many companies. So as leaders, how can you best communicate and, foster this culture, especially with the new generation coming into our industry, which is hopefully going to flood our industry if we do a good job of attracting them. So what are you doing right now? We could throw that out to the whole panel too.
I think the standards is the most important thing. And all the way back to 2001, I was looking through Dropbox, which I love, but has my whole life in it. But I saw the 10 Commandments when I was kind of inventing my company. And I went back to those core. We have 10 Commandments of a family member, member of our team, and I was like, these still apply. Like it's character, it's integrity, do the right thing. In our mission statement, in our vision statement, we're going to honor God with the things we do with our hands, which is proverb verse. You don't have to believe what I believe to hold my standard of my line, which is character, integrity, and doing the right thing. I don't care what you believe outside of what I believe, but if you can hold the line on character, integrity, and doing the right thing, right? So those things are important. Your mission statement, your vision statement, which is posted all over our walls. And it's not important that it's in our walls, it's in our hearts, it's in our culture, it's in our training, training your people to, we have a playbook that I will not take, like you were talking about. There are so many people great at things. I am really good at sales, marketing, and branding, as you may notice, right? My son, I couldn't pay him $1,000 to wear this jacket. Like he is like Emily, like he is the backbone of our company. Processes, procedures, all the things that I know are important that I don't follow any of, right? So, well, I own the company, so I don't
You don't have to.
So we all have our standards. So I know it's important. I know it's all important. I'm just not going to be the guy implementing it. If anybody has read Traction or EOS, or you have to have things in place, which, by the way, is a great book if you haven't read it. Keeping these processes and procedures and holding your line, whatever that is. How many people have ignored something that an employee did that you knew was not your standard? That if I was raised by a Navy chief, I call it the Worley standard, I call it the chief standard. Like, we're going to do the right thing here, or you're not going to be here. I don't have to worry about firing people that work for me, because my people, my managers, my people, even an installer, he has permission to fire a guy that just keeps cutting corners and doing, because he knows he's not going to make it, right? I don't have to fire that guy. He's going to feel the pressure of, Nick Saban is one of my favorite coaches. You're going to, mediocrity and winners are not normally on the same team, right? Because one of them's going to push the other one out, and I demand winning, right? So I don't believe in losing, but you can learn something during a loss, but you can't accept the loss. We got to win, right? So, and I think winners are attracted to winners, and the culture is really important. And I think one of the things that has helped us grow. Oh, and by the way, he put me between these two guys, right? So you think you got a bad seat? My goodness, these guys are studs. But it's holding the line and growing your business and holding your culture. Why did you open your own business? Was it to do, I can do this and make more money and do work and do a lower standard than the guy I quit? Why'd you quit that company? Because they put you in a situation. I was raised by a Navy chief in Norfolk. Character, integrity, doing the right thing. This is my standard. I'm working for companies. They got drugs. They got this. They got drinking on the job, like crazy stuff. I'm like, I opened my own company because I didn't want that. So if you opened your own company, you have a new standard. Now, it can be below the guy you quit because his standard wasn't low enough. No, it's to raise the standard. A rising water raises all ships. You were talking about that this morning on your podcast. If a guy wants to open up his own company, help him. I had a guy quit and open his own company, and I gave him my CPA and my bookkeeper, who's a outside source bookkeeper. And I said, he goes, why are you helping me? I said, if I show you and you do good, at least I don't have to worry about you being lower priced. You're pricing your jobs right. You're losing money. And you're a plumber. You're way too pretty to go to prison. So taxes are important. So you do not need to be doing your books, right? So helping the guy. That guy refers us business. He goes out on jobs, and he's like, this is too big for me. You guys got to take it. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that was a great thing you said this morning.
Anyone else?
For me, I think culture is just the feeling that you get when you walk into our door as a coworker. I think the events that we have, right? Like we have quarterly events that's just kind of a fun party, and it's a dinner, drinks type thing. And what we find is a lot of our coworkers will bring their friends with them, which is really cool because they get to see what we do. And it turns out like a week or two or a month later, they'll reach out and be like, hey, would you consider hiring me? And they don't even really know what we do yet. They just know like their friends are having a good time and they're wearing our company swag on Saturday night to dinner, So there's something cool about that when people want to start doing that, but I think it's just a feeling. And I put myself in that position sometimes, like how I feel when I walk through the office doors, if it's like, ugh. Because I will tell you, culture is not something you can buy. And for a while, I thought that we could just buy the culture, right? But truly, it's something that starts at the top. And we didn't always have really good culture. It was like run 12 service calls a day as quickly as you can, and like get up tomorrow and do the same. Mm-hmm. And we made a shift somewhere in maybe 2019, 18, started shifting that to like, process and procedure is a big part of it. But, to Brian's point is it can't be so rigid that it's like, oh, now I'm a robot doing service calls, because nobody wants to do that, right? So it has to have some structure, right? And people want to be held accountable, but you've got to have that flexibility. So like we talk about family is first, and I think we had 3 people call off today, and completely, like, without question. Like, I get it. And the stories, and I see them, but they don't report to me. But I do know that, when you've got 6 people and 3 people call off, like, it's really hard to operate the company. But now at the size that we are, we assume we're going to have a couple techs off, like, every day. And we've come to just completely accept that, because we practice what we preach. I always say, hey, family's first. And one, for example, was a girlfriend's grandmother fell and fractured her skull, like a pretty big deal. And I said, you got to take care of that, So, and that was today. But we talk about it, and you've got to really practice what you preach on that side, and that's a big one. But like I say, that culture, I think, is what helps us recruit a lot of people into the company of any age. We've been very fortunate that the younger generation, wants to come work for us and wants to wear our brand on the weekend, and really want to do a good job and truly be held accountable. Like when we use Measure Quick and they get that A or whatnot on the commissioning, it just is it's a whole different feel than just putting the system in and leaving, like knowing that their day's work was really, graded and almost a pat on the back. So.
Tom?
I think
Brian,
I'd like to share one thing that we do very well in our culture is we created a learning and a failing culture, right? When you're asking individuals that come from outside the industry or individuals that have no trade skills yet, right? They're gonna fail. They're gonna do some boneheaded things. They're gonna mess things up. Some of the things they're gonna mess up are gonna be really, really, really expensive. So we created this section on our ceiling of our shop, and when during the interview process, during the onboarding process, right, they understand what is a ceiling. Usually it's a topic of discussion when they come in and see it, and we give them a tour. But what this is it's a celebration of their mistake that they made. They bring it in, they sign it, they date it. At our morning huddle, we celebrate it. They get to talk about it. And we embrace it. We pick them up. We dust them off. We let them know it's okay. A lot of the times the other guys are, pointing at their stuff. We're always kind of reliving some of the big mistake moments, the expensive moments. And you remember that? You remember when that guy did that? But embodying the fact and letting them know that it's okay. And it's okay to bring it to you. It's okay to let your other technicians know. And I expect you to make mistakes, right? If you're not making mistakes and have something on the ceiling, then 1, you're not trying hard enough, right? Or 2, you're not being honest, with yourself and with the company, and you're throwing it in the dumpster to hide it. So making sure that it's always there, and that they know that they can learn.
Great.
Culture is one of those buzzwords that, like, it's like when people from outside the trade, because I get a lot of like private equity people or like software people will come up and they'll be like asking a question about contractors as though everyone's exactly the same, or technicians as though everyone's a technician, right? And you'll catch on very quickly that I talk a lot about this idea of people are individuals, treat them that way. That's really, really important to this whole idea. But I can tell you what's worked for us from a culture standpoint, what does kind of make us different. It doesn't mean that there aren't other ways to, because you can have a good culture that's based on one thing, and you can have a good culture that's based on something else. For us, we actually have data. I'm not a big awards guy, but we did. We just won top workplace award on the company culture side nationally in our category, and we're nominated for the thing that our employees said most about us, which is trust and leadership. which for me, that's like, there's nothing I could ask for that makes me happier than to know that people trust us as leaders. And it's not just me, it's our entire leadership team. And what does that mean? What does it mean to be trusted as a leader? It means that people believe that you actually have their best at heart. Because it doesn't mean that they like your choices every day. I mean, like, it's like your parents, right? Like, your parents, when you're a kid, always are telling you not to do things you want to do and telling you to do things you don't want to do. But if you trust your parents, that's sort of separate from that. It's that, do you want my good? Are you interested in what's best for me? Are you thinking about me as an individual or not? And time again, that's what I think it really comes down to. A culture of trust can then be a culture of challenge. People allow you to challenge them when they trust you. If you think about your favorite teacher you ever had or people you look up to, the ones who really helped you in your life are not the ones who just told you what you wanted to hear all the time and made you feel good. The ones who really affected you are the ones who you knew they wanted what's best for you, and they challenged you consistently. And I think cultures that do that become eventually high-performance cultures, because then you as a leader, you don't have to always see and notice everything. Your team's doing it for you because they fundamentally care and they're defending the brand. I also want to end with, like, on this topic, the difference between having standards and having expectations. I see a lot of business owners have expectations. Well, I told him and he didn't do it. Well, that's an expectation. We get told to do things all the time and we don't do it. All of us do all the time, and your employees are going to do the same thing. That's an expectation is about what I expect you to do. It's about a one-way street. Whereas standards are something that we're all working towards, kind of like what you're talking about. We're all holding this together, and when we fail together. And I think it's a much better and more healthy way to think about that, and I think people notice.
Yeah, to that point, that's a great point. The transparency and vulnerability will gain trust. There was a point where I thought that I was expected to know it all, and so I would act like I knew it all, but our people could see quickly like I don't know it all. So now as we're growing, I tell them, like, hey guys, I've never run a company of this size, so I really don't know what we're getting into, but I need some help. I need you guys to be here and grow with me. And then they start rallying around when they realize, like, okay, so Chad doesn't have it all figured out. He doesn't expect us to have it all figured out. We're going to grow this together, and that is a big part of that culture and feeling. So thanks for bringing that up. It's a really good point.
Great. We'll shift the topic a little bit and talk about the methods that you guys use to recruit people. We kind of touched on it a little bit in the beginning. Maybe we can drill down a little. And I had this question for you, Chad. Are you seeing, or even experiencing, I should say, in your company, more of a non-traditional way of bringing people on? Like trade school, not going to trade school necessarily, but building your own, if you will?
Yeah, I would say, definitely, probably much different than, like, we don't post on Indeed or whatever.
You don't throw away money either?
Well, I mean, there are, I guess I shouldn't say. If you really look hard, you'll probably find a post that we put on. But normally it was for like a CSR manager, like somebody that I can't build that as easy as I can a technician. So, so I think our social media, I think we're recruiting every single day without knowing or intentionally recruiting. But what happens is, like, it just looks cool, right? You can't help but see us. Which works great, obviously, when your furnace or air breaks, because we're always top of mind. But, like, we do some really cool stuff, and we've got a team of videographer and editors that will, post this stuff that I would never know what to do with. But it does look pretty neat, and people see that. So, that's one way. Social media is a pretty powerful thing. The trade schools obviously is great, but not the only way to do it. I think that the people that we have brought from other companies, I think we have 11 or 12 or 13 people from that were previously at the Xerox company, and use those for example. I hope nobody is in here from Xerox, because they probably don't love us. But it was their culture that drove them away, and our culture that I think attracted and retains them. But our training facility also is a really neat thing that we have that tends to attract people into our company once they choose the trade. We might not attract them from the trade because of our training facility, but once they see it, and then, like, they talk to our technicians and they realize like you're 24 and you make that much money. We talk a lot of communication and soft skills along with the tech side. So it's like half of what we do is communicating what we're finding. I think that we can train that tech side quicker than ever, right? With the technology that we have, at least gives them multiple things that I missed for the first 15 years of my career. Like I never understood truly what static pressure was or where to test it. So guess what I did? I just didn't test it, you know? So I missed a lot of stuff, and I wish that we had the technology that we had today, because I truly feel that some of these technicians that are, you know, going through our program will probably be a better technician in 2 years than I was in 15 years. So it's just really neat when they start seeing that, and they use these tools as a communication tool to give multiple options to a customer, because there really are problems that I would just go put a capacitor on and leave. Like that's what we did, but they have multiple tools to help them diagnose and then help them communicate, which in turn helps them make more money for their family and become better technicians. So
I think one of the things you were talking about, going to the trade schools and the high schools and all that stuff, posting that stuff on Facebook. Obviously, we do a lot on Facebook. With posting that stuff on Facebook, I haven't necessarily got a great tech from the high school or from the training places, but I promise you, it is like weekly that between me and my son, who basically runs all the ops, the operation, the company really, but we get like private message, text every single week from some customer of ours that had a great experience. It's like, yo, my nephew just graduated. Can he come to work for you guys? I had such a great experience. I want him to work for a successful company, or you know, we had such a great experience with you guys. Can you train him in the trade? So when I'm at this tech school, I don't necessarily have to concentrate on each one of those kids coming to us. It's posting that stuff on Facebook, being different, and being out in front of people. It's real. So like I said, it's almost weekly that we get texts from a family member, a friend's nephew, a kid, a customer's nephew. It's constant. It's constant, and mostly from the field. Like, you know, hey, can you start an apprenticeship, or you know? So yeah. Combining those
Speaking
two.
of like different sources of, you know, potential employees, team members, have any of you looked at like targeted segments of the population? For example, second career seekers. That's a certain type of person, and you have to figure out how to get to them, right? And then, or military. That's a big one. We don't do a great job attracting military, you know, people who are done with their stint, whatever it might be, and are looking for a career. And
I was raised by a CB. Anybody in the Navy? CB's construction battalion. I would hire a CB in 14.2 seconds, probably less, because they can do. That's how I got in the trades. I was lifting ductwork and didn't even know what ductwork was when I was like 14. I was like, why am I not playing with my friends? I'm like holding up ductwork so he could strap it up. So like, yeah, construction guys would be great for us. I think there's also something like the CBs in the Air Force, Red Horse or something, or Seahorse. But yeah, that's a great person to come. But
yeah, it's a great personality, because I've lost some great employees over the years, mostly because, you know, I was not always a great leader, and I strive to be a better leader every day. But when you find somebody from the military, they expect some structure, and when you're a company of no structure, you tend to turn them off, and then you think like, oh, that guy was no good. But and I probably had said that at one point, but when I realized like the guy, it wasn't that person's problem. Actually, he was too good to work for us at the time. So when I realized like, maybe I'm the problem, right? Like, you can't be so regimented, like Brian said, where it's just you do this and you do this every day. Like, it is a different place and a different call and a different situation on every single call, and that's really why I like to get into service at a young age. That was like the deciding factor for me.
You have to be self-aware of that. If someone's leaving your company, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. Like you were saying, you weren't ready, you weren't prepared for that guy. So think about, why are people leaving my company? It could be you.
Yeah.
And I know it was me. I know you said it was you.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Point being though is if you have like a good structure and just clear guidelines. Like when we bring somebody in, for example, Dom, that was second career or military, for example, they have some structure. If we have some people that worked 25 years at a mill and came into our facility, like they've got a lot of life experience, so they don't come in expecting it to be complete chaos. So we have career paths that kind of tell them like, hey, I think you fit right here, and they'll say like, I think I fit right here, or maybe sometimes they'll say I want X number of dollars, I want $30 an hour, and then they read our career passage and really like it's 27. So the expectation of what they think they deserve and what we think they should make are sometimes different, but at the end they end up telling me like, oh man, I'm actually not at 30 yet, but if I do this, this, and this, I'll get to my career path 3, and it just gives them that structure to get to the next, thing. And I think that's sometimes all people want to know is like a clear vision of like, how can I get to that next pay raise, or how can I get that next bit of knowledge that will better myself and my family? And we're very transparent with that, and we actually have them hung on the walls where you can't help but avoid seeing them. So at any time they walk by, they almost are reminded like, hey, I should see if I need a raise. And I used to walk through the office thinking like, oh, I wonder what they think. Like, and we haven't reviewed for a while, and I really hate reviews anyway. Like, I'm not consistent with it. So like an annual review to me just isn't that much fun. But what I love to say is like, hey, do you want a raise? And they'll say, yeah. And I'll just say like, well, you know what you got to do. Just come to me when you're ready. And they're like, I know, I got to work on that. So that's just a neat thing. But you've got to have some structure if you're going to bring somebody in that this is their second career, because they will hold you accountable to have some structure where you hire a younger person and they don't know and it's chaos, and then they are the ones creating the chaos. But if you've got that guidelines for them to follow in that next step, or even a military that has really spent several years of their life with some really probably tough structure, they need some structure.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add a couple things on both those questions. So I think the one thing we need to focus on when we're attracting new people to the industry is we got to make it easy. We need to make it easy for them to come and to learn and participate and grow into a new industry. So some of the things we do on that topic is we give them all their tools, right? They get a fully stocked, about a $5,000 value tool bag right out of the gate, right? We make sure all of our vehicles are new and up to date and well maintained. We let them know they're going to receive about $10,000 to $20,000 of training investment within their first year, right? And that's all free to them. Their uniforms, their boots, every single thing that they would need to start in the trades, we provide to them. We joke around and let them know, you just need to show up with your underwear and socks. We're going to provide everything else that you're
Preferably.
Yeah.
Just, at least in Virginia, it's preferable they do that.
Socks are required. Underwear is.
Yeah.
You can go without that, yeah. So just making it easy and making sure they understand how they don't have to climb a mountain to join and learn a new skill. And then Dom's question specifically about pockets. We have found a great success with the homeschooled kind of culture and pocket. These young individuals are gaining a lot of wisdom early on. They're getting a lot of responsibility and a little more life skill than some of the younger generations going through our public schools. And so these individuals that we have on our team that are 18 or 19 years old, a lot of the times our team or our customers are looking at them as if they were 25 to 26 years old. Really hungry, really ready for responsibility, individuals that are showing their hunger and desire to grow by just moving out of their parents' homes and getting an apartment on their own when they're 18 or 19. So that's been a great success for us.
Good point.
It is, yeah.
All right. Anyone else? We're good? Okay. So as far as recruiting people, the methodologies that you use, maybe we can drill down a little bit there and share some of the things that have worked and maybe not worked in terms of attracting people from different labor pools like we were just talking about. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. I'll just be super specific about what we do. We're a little different because we don't just do. We're not just a residential HVAC contractor. That's a small subset of our overall business. So refrigeration and other things. And yeah, so we have a recruiter. I mean, I have a guy who's dedicated to that purpose, and he's not necessarily because I would love it if he was a trades guy and would go to one specific trade. But again, he has to cover a lot of different types of jobs. But what he is a great salesman for the business. I mean, if you think about the skills that make for a good salesperson, where you're comfortable talking to people and you're positive and you're able to express value, that's what he does. And so I think when you get to a scale that you can have somebody who's really focused on that full time, that's a really good thing. That's shown a lot of great results for us. We're engaged in all the local trade schools, a lot of local community events and that sort of thing. And we actually have sort of changed our marketing where our marketing is really focused on our employees, and it's also focused on recruiting new people. And you think, well, how does that get you clients? But it does actually. It's an interesting thing because the more you're out in the community and you're talking about your employees and how great they are and all this, and they're your neighbors, that's really powerful. What kind of piggybacks on that is our employee referral program, which has been very, very successful. People have always brought their friends and family into the business, but we structured an employee referral program so they get a certain amount for bringing somebody in the door, and then a certain amount of 90 days, and then a certain amount in a year. And that it's not the money necessarily, but it just does kind of help people, remind them like, oh yeah, I could tell my cousin, I know somebody. And it's not just for experienced people. That's where a lot of people do it typically. It's like, we need another guy in a truck. That approach doesn't usually work for us at all. We're almost always developing people from other industries. In terms of targeting, we haven't done a lot of, we have tried that. And so one example would be there's a local building automation program here at Valencia Community College here in Orlando. And we've actually done a lot of recruiting out of that building automation and actually moved them into refrigeration, air conditioning, whatever, on the commercial side. And there's a lot of crossover there. Second career, it's really from anyone who has any mechanical background. So we target a lot of different automotive industry, other types of industrial controls, manufacturing, anything like that. Anybody who's put their hands to doing technical things. So it's a pretty wide net that we cast. But again, once we get them in the funnel, it's a very wide funnel, and they're being kind of curated through our recruiter. And then we have a very established process. So rather than being super selective about who we'll even talk to, be really open about who you'll talk to. That way you're getting a lot of people who are aware at least of what you offer. And then use a really solid process that isn't overly arduous, but that does look at things like attributes. We use something called, it's called PI, which is I forget what PI stands for, but it's an assessment that is really, really powerful, very quick and easy, and it kind of gives a sense of what is this person all about. Not are they a good person or not, but how do they feel about work? Like how do they function at work? And that's very helpful in positioning people.
Disc?
It's like a disc, but it's a super simple one. It's like, basically when you get done with it, I would encourage you all to try it. When you get done with it, it's kind of freaky. It's like, how did you write this? Because it takes you like 3 minutes, and then it tells you like what your grandmother's maiden name, which is sort of creepy. But that's really helpful. We've deployed that. Beyond that, we also do job fairs actually at our shop. And the way that we look at job fairs is this is about giving people a really good experience. So we're not doing a job fair to hire maximum amount of people. We're doing a job fair to get maximum number of people in the door and give them an amazing experience of having been at Kalos. Looking at it like hospitality, like if you're bringing people into your home, how are you going to treat them, right? And I coach all the people who are going to be doing interviews, and we don't do just interviews. We do coaching conversations about, hey, what's it like being an electrician? What's it like being a plumber? What's it like being an HVAC service technician or an installer? And just giving them that experience so that when they walk away, because there's a very good chance we're not going to hire them, we don't want them to feel like, hey, they just wasted my time. We want them to feel like, hey, that'd be a great place to work someday. And I learned a bunch about the trades, and they fed me Chick-fil-A and gave me a hat and gave me a little cooler or whatever we give away every time. And that's been really effective too.
And
we
then
get a lot
when
of
the
good
heat pump
hires.
breaks,
Right,
heat
and
pump
that's the
breaks.
thing,
They-
and so
yeah.
it's a community event, right?
That's a
That's what it
great
turns
idea.
into, and so now, and even when we go to community events, we always kind of mix the recruiting side with what we're doing. We partner with a charity, we'll give away a water heater, we'll do whatever, and we make it about recruiting and our team, and that may seem counterintuitive, but that message of, hey, we're your neighbors, and we're hiring your neighbors, and we're providing good jobs for your neighbors. That's actually a surprisingly good kind of combination of marketing and recruiting.
Yeah, I hope y'all are taking notes because this is all great stuff. I do have a question to. I know I'm not the moderator, but
Yes,
at
please.
what point do you
Please, sir.
think that
Chuck,
you need
come
to
on.
bring on a? I'm sure I'm not used to talking. I talk
very
in
shy.
gusts. Yeah,
He's very
I talk in
shy.
gusts of like
Very
30 miles
shy.
an hour. So the question I have is, at what point in a business do you bring on a full-time recruiter? Because I've heard that more than once.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't. I am not a money-driven contractor, and so for me, it's the moment that I know. It's the moment that I know that I'm not going to be able to do the work that I want to do if I don't start getting people in.
Okay.
In terms of scale, yeah, we were already 200 employees before we had a full-time recruiter.
Okay,
But
sounds good.
in retrospect, I probably would have done it at 50. Now that I see
Right.
the results that it's brought us, because again, that recruiter is not just recruiting. He's also kind of acting like an outside salesperson and brand ambassador in a
Right,
lot of ways,
yeah,
and
that's right.
that's a positive thing.
So it could be a combination of marketing and recruiting.
Yeah,
With
no, absolutely.
seamlessly. Yeah, Tom, you had your hand up there.
I just wanted to kind of bring up, remember the kind of the abstract way of attracting new talent too, and focus on when people do leave your team, right? They're going to go out and they're going to market for you, and they're going to be explaining your company and what you do and what you're all about, whether you want them to or not, right? So making sure that you help people exit appropriately and professionally, and trying to maintain those relationships, because they're going to go to your competitors. They're going to go back into the community and talk about you. So what does that look like, and how can you influence what message they are delivering? Right now, we have about 8 people that we've trained from scratch that are employed in our direct competitors, and making sure you're staying in touch with individuals that you may want to maintain relationships with, even if it's no longer professional. But when you put a lot of time and you put a lot of your personal energy into it, you develop good personal relationships and maintaining those. And there'll be a time that we've started to see, since we've been doing this for almost 10 years now, that there's going to be a time to reach back out to them. That there's going to be a time where maybe the chapter in their life with you, they weren't ready to really dig in and take full responsibility for it. But maybe as they've gone out there and they've seen what's a little bit different out in the industry, that they are ready to come back and they are ready to be fully engaged. So be humble in that aspect, and be open to having those tough conversations with past employees.
We all need time to grow up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Funny, I haven't been in a contracting business for a long time, but I look at NCI as a training organization. I heard a lot of comments here, for example, about kind of translating a little bit, you have to be perfectly imperfect, essentially. And without even trying, I guess we're just really good at being imperfect. But we attracted so many different people from different walks of life into NCI to become instructors and so forth. In fact, Rob and I used to joke, we're the island of the misfit toys. Because most of them probably couldn't sustainably stay employed anywhere else. And because they were such characters, and talk about chaos. Yeah. So we had to rein it in a little bit, but and as a part of that is we did have people leave, go out into the world, check out other opportunities, and then come back even 2 or 3 years later.
Some of the best employees that we have are people that have left and came back. I mean, that's
I think
and you have to be open to that. Like they quit and they opened up their own company. We had a plumber that he had to teach him the difference between competitor and employee, the actual definition of a competitor versus employee. When you have your own website, you're a competitor, not an employee anymore. So he goes, "Are you firing me?" I said, "No, I'm giving you the opportunity to jump in the big end of the pool." So I said, "But here's my CPA, here's my bookkeeper. Plumbers don't do books. Like, you're too pretty to go to prison. Like, go get your stuff straight." He opens up his own business for, it's not even a year. And he calls us and says, I don't know what I was thinking. I want to be back to making great money again. Can I start? So he came back, had a conversation. Best employee we had in our plumbing department. And guess what he was doing to all the guys in that department? You're an idiot if you're going over there. That's crazy. Why would you ever leave here? He is the best salesman we have in our own company. And we've had other people explore opportunity. I know these guys have the size companies that people going to explore other opportunities. I heard you talking about this morning. Yeah. Allow that. If you don't want to work for me, you don't want to hold the standard, it's okay if you want to go work somewhere else. I know there's companies out there that pay unbelievable commissions and all that stuff because they can't hire people because they don't have the high standard. And there's people that cannot work. I could not work for one of those companies. I did when I was coming up through the trades. I followed the money. I went into sales for a company, the character and integrity, they couldn't spell it, let alone say it. And I couldn't do it. I made it like 10 months there. I was like, I can't do it, and I left. So there's people that are gonna chase the money and go to another company, but they'll be back because if they are truly a character and integrity guy or gal, they're gonna want to be with that. They don't want guys doing drugs on the job. They don't want guys doing they want to be surrounded by winners, and winners are attracted to winners, and you want to create that culture like we were talking about earlier. They'll want to come back.
To add to that is, your coworkers are. Notice I never say employee or my people or what So your coworkers are watching what you preach and what you practice. Mm-hmm. So when you say like, "Hey, I wish you the best," starting that company, and then they walk out the door like, "That piece of shit. He was always the worst employee." Wait, hold on. Last week that you said he was one of the best, but now he's one of the worst. If you're gonna, preach that you'll help, then you better help. And if you say you're a good person, you better practice being a good person, not just when that person's in front of you. That's a big one that I see when we have people that come back, to your point, some of our best people, but they also know they tested me when they left to see how I would act and react and when they called and needed help and whatnot, right? So we were always there for them, just as I said I always would be. And I think that holds some of our people here that think like, all right, they are good people. So definitely say what you would say in public to exactly the way you would say it to that person's
and you face, were talking about earlier about somebody taking a day off. It's never December 24th, when probably going to be off anyway, right? It's July 3rd. It's always the day, so you have to, it's never going to be an easy day. We ain't even got a backlog. Sure, you can take off and help grandma.
And that gets abused. And so when it gets abused, I personally I love breakfast. I eat breakfast every day with somebody, but it's going to be like a 6 o'clock breakfast, right? Let's get serious here. Typically the one that calls off the most, once a week, is the one that's talking about hey, I need another $1 raise because I can't afford my mortgage. And I'm like, well, family's first, and I will never question why you called off. But you have a family emergency once a week? Probably not, right? So we have to have that talk, is this a good fit for you? If you want to be here and be part of the team, I want to be flexible, but you're abusing it, and for those 4 calls that you had scheduled, now somebody else has to do those calls, right? Maybe it's 1 per person, but that's 1 more call, and our calls are typically 2.5 hours or so that they won't be with their family. So that does sometimes weed people out also. And and to your point, we do pay pretty good spiffs and commissions, but when you can have both the culture and the training and the techs make the money, it'd be really hard to recruit one of our coworkers away from us.
So we're kind of running out of time here. So we had several other questions, but I have to jump over those. And maybe to kind of wrap things up, and we might have a little time for questions from each of you. What do you believe you and other contractors need to do in terms of next steps to overcome some of these challenges? Recruiting, onboarding, training, all of these things. What advice would you give to your peers out there?
I think have a plan. We grew from 20 people to 100 people in 4 years. And that was not without a plan. So we had a plan of when we bring them in, whether it be our office staff or our comfort advisors or service tech or tune-up tech or whatever that is, just a very clear plan of what their future looks like. And they can come in at any level of experience. What their pay is going to look like, how they can make more money. I think be very transparent on that. And if it is a technical job, they need training. And I think that people appreciate training and they appreciate the structure of training, but I'm not saying like, once a quarter you're going to send them to your supplier from 6 to 8 that night. I mean, you've got to have a definite, solid plan of training. There's a couple of my friends in here that are larger than we are, and I have a huge amount of success of recruiting people, running them through their training facility. But it's not like a furnace in the back of the corner lab that they say like, oh yeah, we've got a really nice lab at our shop, but it's the furnace that heats the shop. Like that's not a shop, or that's not a lab. You've got to really have a structured training and tell them what the structured training is if you expect them to be good technicians. Because too many times I think in our industry, people are like, oh, he just doesn't know what I want. Like he doesn't get it. Well, like, do you even know what you want? And if it's not in writing, it's really not a process. But if you write that down and share it with those people, now you both know what the expectation is. So I think that's the biggest thing I could throw your way on that one.
Yeah, quick kind of word to self. So when I'm saying this, because it's going to come across maybe a little insulting, but this is something I've had to tell myself a lot. And that is, when it comes to this whole topic, recruiting, training, culture, all this stuff, stop being a baby, right? Stop whining. Stop. Like kids today, oh, well, he doesn't know. He only did it 3 months and now he expects a raise, blah, blah, blah. Cut it out. Nobody wants to hear that. You decided to be a business owner. You decided to be a business leader. If you don't want to grow, then don't grow. Then don't do it. That's your choice. If you want to grow, then stop being a baby about people. Because people are what they are. Culture changes. People have different work ethic. It's if you look, there's that one video reel where it goes back through news articles about how kids these days don't want to work, and it goes like all the way back to the 1800s, where every generation said about the kids these days they don't want to work, right? It's
all accurate,
right? I mean, they probably don't want to work, right? I mean, who does really? Honestly, let's be honest. I mean, it sounds fun to just surf and play golf, I guess. I don't know, but just embrace the fact that it is your responsibility to do this. And we can make excuses all day long, or you could take the time that you spend talking to your peers about how hard it is and commiserating and crying on each other's shoulders while you wipe your tears off with $100 bills, or we can care for our people, take it seriously, create good training programs, recruit well, try different things. You're going to fail at probably more than half of it, make hires. Some of them aren't going to be great. I've had guys who have left and come back 4 times. And every time it's like, man, I love you, but yeah, it looks like you're gonna have to go do that again. Okay, great, fine. Then he comes back, yeah, I was wrong. Yeah, again. Okay, here we go. We're doing this again, right? You can't get, there's a scripture that says, do not become weary in well-doing, and that is something that you just have to stick with. Even burnout is a choice. I hear this all the time. It's like, oh, I'm so burned out. I'm working my butt off. It's like, okay, so what are you doing about it? What are you gonna do about it? That's the question that I would have you ask yourself. And I told you this was going to sound harsh, but this is my self-talk, because I am a crybaby. I'm always whining about how hard it is. But go back to, so what are you going to do about it? If you don't like it, then fix it. If you're not, I don't get time with my kids, I don't have vacation. Okay, what are you going to do to fix it? Because ultimately, if you have people who are excited to work for you, and they're doing the things that you ask them to do because they want to, then you're going to get a lot more time off. You're going to be able to trust that my phone's on airplane mode and nothing's gonna burn down right now because I have people who are taking care of it.
Nobody cares. Work harder.
As an owner, yeah. You don't talk to your people that way.
No.
I'm not saying that.
Nobody
would be really
left.
bad. Yeah. But as an owner, like that is the choice you made. And like, well, why don't they do? They don't have my same work ethic. Yeah, duh. And they don't own the company either. That's ridiculous. So just take that more seriously. I hear so much complaining, and mostly from my own mouth. And I'm just encouraging you all, just stop it. My wife tells me this all the time, just cut it out. Like we have it amazing. To be here in this country, to be owning businesses, leading things, we are the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of anyone who's ever lived in the history of the world. We have nothing to complain about. We get to do really awesome stuff. Treat your people better, treat them well. And if you're treating them great, treat them a little better tomorrow. Just keep upping that, and you'll have no problem recruiting. You'll have no problem building a good business.
That's right. Just be different. I think the thing that stands out the most to me is be different. And when I first opened my own company all the way back in 2001, my goal was to open up a company that I wanted to work for. Create a space that you want to work for, that will attract guys like you, gals like you, winners, and that you want to be successful. You want to do a great job. You want to do the best high-performing company. Like, create a company that you actually would go to work for. Because there was a lot of companies my integrity and my character could not work for. Don't be that guy.
Awesome. Tom?
I would say we have kind of my wife and I have a mantra in our company, similar to what Brian said, just articulated a little bit differently. And it's, you all know what you want to do, right? You know what your goal is. Sometimes you get worried about the what ifs and if I do that and I invest that and so forth. And it's just surrender to the outcome and do the uncomfortable work. The outcome's going to be whatever it's going to be. Do the grind, do that dark work that just is hard and miserable sometimes. Get uncomfortable, get it done. If it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to, at least you know what you need to change to do it again and make it that much better.
Awesome. I'd like to thank each of our panelists. We do have any questions from the audience. There's a microphone back there. I think we have
Right behind you.
3 or 4 minutes. There you go.
I project pretty well, so I may not need the microphone. My question, first of all, thank you all for your time and sharing your expertise. We very much appreciate that. But to the gentleman second from my starboard, you talked about, at the very beginning, working with your local trade schools. And how do you choose, because you maybe have multiple trade schools in your area, how do you choose which ones to work with where you know the instruction they're given is the material that you want the student to have when they come to work for you? Because there are some very good trade school instructors and there are some pretty crappy ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how do you select which ones you work with, and do you look for a program that is validated or has accredited from some national organization?
So we will recruit from, we have 3 trade schools in our area, and we'll recruit from all of them, and we'll hire every single person we can that will come work for us. But you're very right. There are many different styles of trainers and ages of trainers and abilities of trainers, right, the teachers. And we do have one trade school that he pretty much was, how do you say it nicely, like those who can't teach type thing. So we know what we're getting from that, but it still ends up very, very good coworkers. It might take an extra month to get up to speed, but they have the fundamentals. You know, they're still teaching them some wiring and some schematics, and that's all stuff they need to know. Unfortunately, like I've got 2 of the 3. The toolkits would be like the field piece, Bluetooth tools.
That's
Okay.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
So if we can get the teachers and the vocational school to teach Measure Quick and to use Bluetooth tools, to use Measure Quick, to use a temperature compensated pressure test, to use a Blue Vac app, like 2 of them will buy the toolkit that I've told them to. The other teacher is so petrified of the technology that he won't teach it. So he's really holding those students back, but I will go into that class every so often and at least introduce them, like it doesn't really need hoses and manifolds to service the AC anymore. So at least introduce them so when they come to us, they end up getting a kit from us, which we don't give. We actually will payroll deduct because I want them to own their own tools so they can go anywhere in the world, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I will hire any vocational school student that wants to come work for us, whether they're from the HVAC program or another, and we have very good rate of success with that.
Thank you very much. And as a follow-up to that, and perhaps Brian might have some input on this, all of you no doubt have metrics that measure callbacks for your various installers and or service technicians. What do you use to validate that callback ratio or to reduce that callback ratio from your, for instance, do your technicians have to provide you some type of a checklist that says they've completed all of these tasks as part of what their job function is? And then if someone goes in behind them because of a callback, is there a checklist that says, well, you did this and you didn't do this?
Yeah.
Some way to help you get that callback ratio more manageable for your technician?
We do have a checklist, and
No, good.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
you're better to answer that.
we do have a checklist. Now, keep in mind, if we've got, say, 50 technicians, if I make every technician that's been in the field for 25 years follow my checklist, I'd probably lose them. But they don't really need to follow a checklist. They've done really, really well. Some of these people have been 30 years plus at a company that I purchased. Like, I really want technology. I need them to use Service Titan. Inside of Service Titan or even Measure Quick will bring over the list. It's really a step-by-step by deploying probes. It's not so much like write down 3.5 inches and it had 24 volts and 110 volt supply, like, because we all know those aren't real numbers. I just need them to deploy the probes and click through the buttons or options or app, and then that will sync up. As far as our callback rate, like I think industry standards like 2% or something, we can see the callbacks for each person, and we review those callbacks at a weekly meeting, and we review them as a group because what we found is like it's not scolding, it's kind of educating. So the guys just said like, okay, just cut the bowl. We want to get better. Tell us who did it, and because I was
They
like,
know.
well, we had
Yeah.
this callback. Like, tell us who was it? Mine? Because I want to know. Because I want to ask Jim. Because I know Jim can help me, right? Service Titan is a very powerful tool for us. We track everything in our company through Service Titan. It's kind of like garbage in, garbage out. But like, I could go into a 20-minute more conversation. But when the call comes in as a callback, it gets tagged as a callback. But it's not always a callback. So you've got to tell the customer, like, hey, if it's anything related to what we did last time, 100% free. But keep in mind, just because your furnace is broke again, there are other things. So we tag it as a callback so we don't lose it. So at any given time, it might say, like, today's callback rate was 13%, but we reclass those tomorrow once we get the explanation of, like, oh, it was a bad gas valve. I ordered the gas valve under warranty and replaced it. Now, that's a warranty, not a callback. But we can train on that, and we can get even deeper into that by job costing a service call and then looking at the billable hour for that service call. So even if it's not a callback, if our Service Titan flat rate said like that motor replacement should have been an hour, but they took 3 hours, that's not a callback, but it surely potentially is a callback, or potentially a callback tells me they don't know how to install that blower motor. So it gives us the opportunity to bring them in and train that particular person in our lab on that potential
And I know
callback.
we're short on time, but
Yeah.
I do want to comment about those. Any
Killing me.
HVAC school, I'm not there for the instructors. I don't care if they're the best, the worst. How many teachers have we had that are bad teachers, but we turned out okay? I just want that kid. I want find that kid, character integrity guy. I can train him how to do it right. What I need is the character integrity. I can't teach him how not to steal, but I can teach him how to put gauges on, right?
All right, we're running way over, but if you do have some questions and want to come up,
I'll stay as long as
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I
want,
will
but
too.
feel free
We'd
to
love
go.
to talk.
'Cause I know
Yeah.
we're holding you
Yeah.
guys
Thanks,
up on some
everybody.
stuff, but
All right.
awesome. Thank you.
Sorry about that.